Ryan Carter was a man who worked hard for what he had. As the owner of a high-end luxury car dealership, he spent years building his business from the ground up, catering to celebrities, athletes, and CEOs. His success allowed him to buy a beautiful home in a suburban neighborhood, one that he thought would be peaceful. But he hadn't accounted for Karen Whitmore. Karen, the HOA president, ran the community like a dictatorship. She treated every sidewalk, lawn, and driveway as her personal kingdom. And for some reason, she had decided that Ryan, a man who knew more about contracts and legal loopholes than she ever would, was her next target. It started small. First, she sent warning letters about the color of his front door, apparently slightly off the HOA-approved shade. Then, a fine for parking violations, even though he parked in his own driveway. Ryan ignored them. And that's when Karen made her biggest mistake. She tried to tow his car. One evening, Ryan arrived home to find a tow truck in his driveway. And hooked up to the back? His 2023 Lamborghini Urus, a car worth over $250,000. Ryan clenched his jaw, his patience snapping as he stormed over to the driver. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The tow truck driver looked startled. I was given an order by the HOA to remove an unauthorized vehicle." Ryan laughed, a sharp, dangerous sound. "Unauthorized? That's my car, and this is my property." Before the driver could respond, a familiar grating voice chimed in. "Mr. Carter, this isn't personal," Karen said, stepping onto the sidewalk with her clipboard clutched tightly. Ryan turned slowly, leveling her with a cold stare. "Karen, I swear if you don't explain yourself in the next 5 seconds, you're going to wish you never stepped foot on my property." Karen didn't flinch. "Your car is a commercial vehicle. It has your dealership's name registered to it, which makes it a business asset, and business vehicles are not allowed to be parked overnight in residential driveways." Ryan stared at her. "You're joking." She smiled smugly. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter." Ryan exhaled slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. "Let me explain something to you, Karen," he said, stepping closer. "That car is personally owned. It's not a commercial vehicle. You don't have the legal right to tow it." Karen crossed her arms. "The board has decided otherwise." Ryan smirked. "Oh, the board? You mean you?" Her smug look faltered. Ryan turned back to the tow truck driver. "Buddy, you touch my car, and you'll be hit with a lawsuit so fast your grandkids will feel it. You've been warned." The driver hesitated, looking between them. I don't want to get involved in this." Ryan nodded. "Smart choice." The tow truck driver unhooked the car and left. Karen's face was red with rage. "You just made a huge mistake," she hissed. Ryan chuckled. "Oh, I made the mistake?" "No, Karen. You just declared war on the wrong guy." Because if she thought this was over, she was about to learn the hard way. Ryan Carter was not a man you messed with. HOA's first power move. Karen was furious. Ryan could see it in the way she clenched her clipboard as the tow truck drove away, her face turning red like she was about to explode. But instead of backing down, she did what all petty tyrants do. She escalated. The very next morning, Ryan found a bright red notice taped to his front door. He ripped it off and scanned the text. Notice of violation. Infraction number 1. Unauthorized commercial vehicle parking, $500 fine. Infraction number 2. Failure to comply with HOA orders, $1,000 fine. Infraction number 3. Aggressive behavior toward HOA officials, $750 fine. Ryan laughed out loud. Aggressive behavior? He had barely raised his voice. As he was shaking his head, a familiar, smug voice rang out. "Morning, Mr. Carter." He turned to see Karen standing at the edge of his driveway, arms folded like she had already won. "I see you got your notice," she said sweetly. "The board expects prompt payment." Ryan folded his arms, amused. "Karen, let me get this straight. You failed to tow my car, so now you're just throwing random fines at me?" Karen smirked. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter. If you can't follow them, perhaps this isn't the right community for you." Ryan let out a slow breath. "Karen, let me tell you something about rules," he said, stepping closer. "They only work if they're legal. And this." He held up the notice. "This is fraud." Her smile twitched. "You're free to appeal at the next HOA meeting." Ryan tilted his head. "Oh, I'll be there. And trust me, you're not going to like what happens next." Karen's confidence wavered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "Have a great day, Mr. Carter." She turned and walked away, but Ryan could tell she was nervous. Because what she didn't realize, Ryan was already planning her downfall. Karen tries to get the authorities involved. By that afternoon, she had already taken her next step. Ryan had just finished a meeting at his dealership when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "This is Carter." "Mr. Carter, this is Officer Reynolds with the local police department. We received a complaint from your HOA regarding a parking violation and aggressive behavior toward board members. We'd like to ask a few questions." Ryan grinned. Karen had actually tried to get the police involved. "Of course, officer. But before we go any further, I'd like to let you know that this call is being recorded. Now, could you clarify exactly what law I broke?" There was a brief silence. The officer hesitated. "Well, the HOA reported that your vehicle is in violation of community standards." Ryan leaned back. "Officer, do you have jurisdiction over HOA bylaws?" "No." "Then I'd suggest speaking with your legal department before wasting more of your time on this." Another pause. "Understood, sir. Have a good day." Click. Ryan chuckled. Karen was desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. Ryan starts digging into the HOA's corruption. Ryan was done playing defense. If Karen wanted to play dirty, she was about to see what real power looked like. He spent the next few hours digging into the HOA's financial records, pulling up past violations, and speaking with other homeowners. What he found was gold. Small Blue Diamond Karen had been issuing fraudulent fines, and many homeowners had paid just to avoid dealing with her. Small Blue Diamond, she had personally signed off on illegal enforcement actions, including unauthorized tow orders. Small Blue Diamond, the HOA, had never been audited, meaning Karen had total control over the finances. Ryan grinned. He had all the evidence he needed. And now, it was time to strike back. The HOA escalates the conflict. Karen was losing control, and she knew it. But instead of backing off, she doubled down. Ryan had expected her to come at him with another fine or another empty threat. But what she did next, that was a whole new level of illegal. A fake eviction notice. Ryan had just finished dinner when he noticed another bright red notice taped to his front door. He sighed, ripping it off. But this time, it wasn't a fine. It was an eviction notice. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he read the ridiculous document. Notice of forced removal. Due to multiple HOA violations, your property is subject to an involuntary removal order. Failure to vacate within 30 days will result in legal action. Ryan laughed. Actually laughed out loud. This woman was trying to evict him from a house he fully owned. Before he could even process how absurd this was, a familiar voice called out. "HOA regulations exist for a reason, Mr. Carter." Ryan turned, already knowing what he'd see. Karen stood at the sidewalk, arms crossed, looking smug as ever. "Did you really just try to evict me from my own house?" Ryan asked, holding up the paper. Karen smiled. "The HOA has the authority to remove problematic homeowners from the community." Ryan stared at her. "Karen, you do realize I own multiple properties in this neighborhood, right?" Karen's smirk faltered. Ryan stepped closer. "I don't rent. I don't lease. I own. You can't evict someone from property they legally own." Karen lifted her chin. "We'll see about that." Ryan chuckled. "Oh, we definitely will." Because now, Karen had crossed the line into actual fraud, and Ryan was going to bury her with it. Ryan starts gathering evidence. That night, Ryan started putting together a case against the HOA. Small Blue Diamond, he contacted a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, his corporate legal team, the same one that handled multimillion-dollar lawsuits for his business. Small Blue Diamond, he interviewed other homeowners. Turns out, Karen had threatened to evict multiple people, but no one had ever fought back before. Small Blue Diamond, he found proof of Karen's financial misconduct. She had personally signed off on over $100,000 in HOA fees that had mysteriously disappeared. Ryan grinned. Karen had no idea how deep she was in. The HOA board starts questioning Karen. The next day, word of Ryan's investigation started spreading. By the time the next HOA board meeting rolled around, Ryan could tell the other board members were nervous. Karen sat at the front, pretending like nothing was wrong. But Ryan wasn't about to let her skate by. He stood up. "Before we start, I have a serious question." Karen sighed dramatically. "Mr. Carter, this is a board meeting, not." Ryan held up the eviction notice. The room went silent. "Can you explain why you tried to illegally evict me?" Ryan asked. Karen's face turned red. That's a legal process." Ryan smirked. "Oh, really? Then why did my lawyer tell me this document is completely fake?" A few board members whispered to each other. Ryan folded his arms. Either Karen has no idea what she's doing, or she just committed fraud. So which is it? One of the board members, a middle-aged woman named Linda, turned to Karen. Karen, is this true? Karen's fake confidence cracked. I was just enforcing regulations. Linda frowned. We never approved an eviction order. More whispers. More nervous looks. Karen realized, too late, that she was losing control. Ryan leaned forward. You're done, Karen. Because now, the HOA oversteps and the protagonist strikes back. Karen was losing her grip on the HOA, and she knew it. But instead of backing down, she went nuclear. If she couldn't get Ryan to obey, she would force him out, one way or another. And this time, she tried something illegal. The towing scam. Ryan was reviewing paperwork in his home office when his phone buzzed. A notification from his home security system. He checked the live camera feed, and his blood boiled. A tow truck was backing into his driveway. Hooked to the back, his Ferrari F8 Tributo, a car worth over $300,000. Ryan grabbed his phone and sprinted outside. HEY, he shouted. The tow truck driver paused, startled. Karen, standing smugly on the sidewalk, crossed her arms. Mr. Carter, this is your final warning. You continue to park unauthorized vehicles in your driveway. Ryan cut her off. This is Grand Theft Auto, Karen. The driver hesitated. The HOA ordered this tow. Ryan pulled out his phone. Did the HOA get a court order for vehicle removal? The driver blinked. Ryan smirked. Because without one, this is illegal. You tow my car, and you're going to jail for auto theft. The tow truck driver turned pale. Lady, is this even legal? The driver asked, looking at Karen. Karen sputtered. The HOA, we have the authority. Ryan stepped forward. No, you don't. He turned to the tow truck driver. I suggest you unhook my car unless you want to be in handcuffs by the end of the day. The driver swore under his breath and started lowering the car back onto the driveway. Karen looked furious. This is not over. Ryan chuckled. Oh, it absolutely is. Because now, Karen had crossed the line into criminal activity, and Ryan was about to end her entire career. Ryan goes public. That night, Ryan sent an anonymous tip to a local news station. Headline the next morning: Police Garlight HOA president caught illegally towing homeowner's car. Possible criminal charges pending. Police Garlight. Ryan grinned as he sipped his morning coffee, watching Karen's name spread like wildfire. The neighborhood turns against Karen. By the time the next HOA meeting rolled around, the room was packed. But this time, everyone was angry. Karen sat at the front, visibly sweating. Ryan leaned back, arms crossed. Linda, the HOA board member, stood up. Karen, we need to discuss the towing incident. Karen forced a smile. That was just a misunderstanding. A neighbor stood up. A misunderstanding? You tried to steal his car. More voices joined in. You've been abusing your power for years. I got a fine for my mailbox being the wrong shade of blue. You told my husband he couldn't park in his own driveway. Karen's face turned red. Linda sighed. Karen, it's time for you to step down. Karen's eyes widened. You can't do that. Ryan smirked. Actually, we can. Linda held up a petition. We took a vote, she said. Over 90% of homeowners want you removed. Effective immediately, you're no longer HOA president. The room erupted into cheers. Karen sat frozen, as if she couldn't believe it. Ryan leaned forward, voice low and amused. Told you this was over. Karen stormed out of the room. And just like that, she was finished. Karen's final, desperate move. Karen was out as HOA president. Her power was gone. Her reputation was in ruins. But instead of accepting defeat, she did what all desperate people do. She tried one last reckless stunt. And this time, she sealed her own fate. The break-in. It happened late at night. Ryan was reviewing a new real estate deal when his security system sent an alert. Red circle motion detected, front porch. He pulled up the live feed, and his jaw clenched. Karen, dressed in dark clothing, sneaking onto his property. And what was she doing? She was messing with his front security camera. Ryan grinned. You've really lost it, Karen. He pressed a button on his phone, activating floodlights. The yard lit up like a football stadium. Karen froze. Ryan stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. Karen, he said, his voice calm but ice cold. Are you seriously trying to break into my house? Karen stammered. I was just. Ryan pulled out his phone. Smile for the cameras. This is all being recorded. Karen's face drained of color. You know what's funny? Ryan continued. Trespassing is a crime. And considering you just got fired from the HOA, you can't even claim official business. Karen took a step back. I was just checking something. Ryan smirked. No worries. The cops will check it for you. He dialed 911. Karen gets caught. 15 minutes later. Police car light flashing red and blue lights filled the street. Police car light. Karen stood on the sidewalk, looking completely broken as a police officer questioned her. Ryan leaned against his car, watching with amusement. Ma'am, the officer said, you were caught on camera trespassing. That's a criminal offense. Karen's voice was shaky. I was just. The officer held up a hand. Save it. You're looking at trespassing, attempted vandalism, and harassment charges. Karen's eyes went wide. But I was the HOA president. The officer raised an eyebrow. Not anymore, you're not. Ryan chuckled. Exactly. Karen collapsed onto the curb, face in her hands. She had officially lost everything. HOA crumbles and Karen's downfall. Karen's arrest sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The former HOA tyrant, the woman who had bullied, fined, and controlled homeowners for years, was now facing criminal charges. And the best part? It wasn't over yet. The HOA faces the fallout. After Karen's disgraceful exit, the remaining HOA board members tried to distance themselves from her. But Ryan wasn't about to let them off the hook. At the next HOA meeting, he stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, addressing the room, we all know why we're here. The HOA has been stealing from homeowners, enforcing fake rules, and abusing power. And Karen might be gone, but this system is still rotten to the core. The room murmured in agreement. Linda, one of the last board members, sighed. So what do you propose? Ryan smirked. We dissolve the HOA. Permanently. Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's last loyalists protested. We can't just get rid of the HOA. Who will manage the neighborhood? We need order. Ryan let them rant, then pulled out a legal document. This, he said, is a petition to officially dissolve the HOA. And guess what? Over 75% of homeowners have already signed it. Silence. Linda rubbed her temples. That's legally binding. Ryan leaned forward. Exactly. Linda sighed. Then I guess we have no choice. With a heavy gavel slam, she announced. Effective immediately, the Oakwood Estates HOA is officially dissolved. The room erupted into cheers. Ryan just smiled. Karen was gone. The HOA was dead. And for the first time ever, the neighborhood was truly free. Karen loses everything. The very next morning, a moving truck pulled up to Karen's house. Ryan sipped his coffee as he watched her frantically pack up her things. Turns out, with no HOA salary, multiple lawsuits, and a criminal record pending, Karen had no choice but to sell her house. As she loaded her last box, Ryan strolled over. Morning, Karen, he said, grinning. She glared at him. This is your fault. Ryan chuckled. Oh no, Karen. This is all you. She clenched her jaw. I'll be back. Ryan smirked. Doubt it. And with that, Karen drove away, a disgraced, powerless nobody. The HOA faces full legal consequences. Karen's downfall was just the beginning. The HOA itself had been rotten for years, and now? It was about to be buried for good. The class action lawsuit. After the HOA was dissolved, Ryan made sure it didn't go down quietly. With his legal team leading the charge, the homeowners filed a class action lawsuit against the former HOA board. The claims? Small Blue Diamond fraudulent fines. Small Blue Diamond illegal property threats. Small Blue Diamond financial misconduct. And guess what? Small Blue Diamond the city was investigating too. Turns out, the HOA had mismanaged over $200,000 in homeowner dues. Money that had mysteriously disappeared over the years. With Karen already facing charges, the other board members panicked. And within weeks, the HOA was officially bankrupt. The court ruling. A month later, Ryan sat in a packed courtroom, watching the final nail in the coffin. The judge looked at the remaining HOA members and sighed. Based on the overwhelming evidence, he said, the court finds that the Oakwood Estates HOA engaged in fraudulent practices, and all illegally collected funds must be returned to the homeowners. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The judge wasn't done. Furthermore, he continued, all former board members involved in financial misconduct will face individual fines and possible legal action. Ryan smirked. Game. Set. Match. Ryan's final power move. After the ruling, a few of the remaining board members tried to approach Ryan. Listen, one of them said, we know you hated Karen, but this lawsuit is going to ruin us. Ryan took a slow sip of his coffee. Good. They looked defeated. Is there anything we can do? Ryan smiled. There's an office building I just bought downtown. My company needs janitors. Interested? Their faces went pale. And Ryan? He walked away grinning. Karen's personal downfall. With the HOA dead and the lawsuit settled, Ryan assumed Karen would disappear into obscurity. But fate had a sense of humor. Karen's new job. One afternoon, Ryan stopped by one of his new properties, a luxury office complex he had recently acquired. As he stepped inside the lobby, a familiar voice caught his attention. Excuse me, sir, you can't park there. Ryan froze. No way. He turned, and there she was, Karen, wearing a cheap name tag. Her new job, a parking lot attendant. Ryan grinned. Oh, Karen, he said, barely containing his laughter. Didn't expect to see you here. Karen's face turned red. What are you doing here? Ryan smirked. I own this building. Karen's eye twitched. No, you don't. Ryan pulled out his phone and flashed the property deed. Karen's jaw dropped. You work for me now. She looked like she was about to faint. Ryan chuckled. Well, Karen, I hope you enjoy enforcing parking rules. I hear clipboard duty is a real thrill. And with that, Ryan walked inside, leaving Karen standing there, trapped in her own personal nightmare. Epilogue and final mic drop. With Karen working for him, the HOA dissolved, and the neighborhood finally free, Ryan had won. And damn, it felt good. The neighborhood after Karen. Without the HOA's ridiculous rules, the community thrived. Small Blue Diamond, no more petty fines. Small Blue Diamond, no more tow trucks lurking around. Small Blue Diamond, no more clipboard patrols. People actually enjoyed their homes again. At the next neighborhood barbecue, Ryan's neighbor, Mr. Thompson, walked over with a grin. Hey, Ryan, he said, handing him a piece of paper. Ryan unfolded it and laughed. Notice of violation. Infraction. Excessive enjoyment of one's own property. Ryan snorted. You really made a fake HOA violation? Thompson smirked. Souvenir. Ryan shook his head, crumpling the paper. I'll frame it. He leaned back in his chair, sipping a whiskey, watching his peaceful, drama-free neighborhood. Karen was gone. The HOA was dead. And this was exactly how it should have been all along. With a final, satisfied smirk, Ryan muttered, They really tried.